Hey, oh, here it's Broyles, and we are going to continue our animal mashup. A couple things that we're going to do today is we're going to talk about selecting the whole animal, moving it around, changing the size of it. We are going to talk about using the warp tool to get these um, legs to kind of be a little bit of the same size ish. And then we're going to talk about using the blending clone stamp tool to be able to blend some of our animal parts together. So, first off, if I need to move this or resize it, because as I'm building it, it's getting kind of awkward. And I will tell you, I don't have all 8 parts yet. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. I need a couple more, but I'm going to move ahead with this. So if I click over here in my layers panel, if I click on the head and I scroll down, if I click, hold shift and click again, I can select all of these layers at the same time. That means if I have the move tool picked in the toolbox, I can move the thing around. If I go to edit, free transform, shortcut command or control T, I'm able to then resize the animal as I'm working on it. So if I need to do that, I need to do that. I want to talk a little bit about lead room a little bit. So, and white space. As I'm sizing up my animal, it might change when I get my habitat behind it, but I need to have a little bit of white space around the edge of my animal. Okay. I don't want my animal all the way up to the very edge of the paper. I need to give it a little bit of white space. I also want to think about lead room. Lead room is if you have an animal that could be walking or somebody like throwing a ball, you want to give the direction it's moving a little bit more space so that you give the mind a little bit of space for it to kind of keep moving in the direction it's moving. So think about lead room, think about white space as you're resizing your animal. All right. So selecting all of those, I want to get back to just being able to click on one layer at a time. So just click on a layer. That's fine. All right, I'm going to try to use a special transform tool to try to get these legs. Notice I labeled my layers to try to get these legs to fit a little bit better into this zebra leg stump, if you will. So I've gone to the leg layer. If I go up to edit, instead of free transform, there's a menu down here called transform. There's a lot of different transformations here. I'm going to actually go to warp. Okay. This is also where you would flip things horizontal or vertical if you needed to flip the leg into a different direction. So once I'm on warp, I'm going to zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. Oh, that's funny. I must have, oh, there we go. So with warp, I can pull the corners in. That's one thing I can move. With the corners, there's these levers. I can move these levers in. I can also move this over a little bit. There are intersections inside here that I can also move. So as I move my leg around, I want to make sure that I'm not distorting it too much to where it doesn't look like a leg anymore, because you can really kind of distort this and warp it to where it doesn't really look like a leg anymore. So I can try to pull this down. I don't want to go too far. I might have to go now up to the body. So I'm going to go to the body of my zebra, and then edit, transform, warp on the body. And now I might need to make this a little bit wider. Okay. So I can use that with the levers. Take note though, it is changing the shape of my neck up here. So you want to be real careful with this. And I can go, I'll pull this down. See if I can pull it out just a little bit more. These levers, they go up and down. They also slide, which kind of lengthen things. There we go. That's not too bad. All right, click enter to lock that in. And then, so now I haven't distorted things too much. I'll fix this in a minute. but now my legs kind of fit in. So you want to try to use warp to clean things up. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to work on this mane up here. I use the Refine Select tool, or select mask, and I use the Refine Edge brush to get this part of the fur done really well. But I didn't do a good job on this part down here. So let's talk about blending a bit. With blending, I am going to be using the Clone Stamp tool. So the Clone Stamp tool lives over here. It's right underneath the paintbrush. With the Clone Stamp tool, it works kind of like a paintbrush. So I want to think about my paintbrush. It can either have a soft edge, okay, fuzzy edge, or a hard edge. For what I'm doing up here with this type of blending, I'm going to go with a soft edge because I want it to feather off and not be a hard edge. Okay, so set your brush to a round, soft, fuzzy edge brush. This is how this works. I need to be on the right layer of where my pixels are. So I need some lion's hair, so I'm going to be on the lion's layer. This works like a vacuum cleaner. On your keyboard next to your space bar, you either have a Alt key or a Command key, okay? Excuse me. If you're on a Mac, it's Option. If you're on a PC, it's Alt. It's right next to the keyboard. It's going to turn your brush into this little target. What this is going to do is if I come up here and I click, pretend this is like a little vacuum. I am now sucking up wherever that crosshair is. That's where I click. That's where the vacuum cleaner is sucking. And then I'm painting with the brush down underneath. And so if you notice the way that I aligned where the vacuum picked it up, I didn't just go, oh, here, let me take this right here. So if I suck up the fur from here and then I come away over here, look, that's not the right color. Like I'm losing all that blonde. I'm putting in some of this red. I want to say, I want this. If I come down, I can kind of even aim. I can see a little bit of that blonde and I can keep the pattern and the color scheme going. Remember, this is a brush, so I can always use the bracket keys on my keyboard and make the brush bigger and smaller so that I can get different chunks of hair. You need to keep moving your source point. So if I move down here, I might want to reset my source point so that I get the right color schemes going into my blending. Okay. So I can even go a lot smaller, get some smaller hairs up in here, and really make this fur look like it should look. So that's kind of blending off. There is another, if I want to get it to be softer like this, see, this still has a hard edge. This is a paintbrush, so I can come up here and pull the opacity down on this paintbrush. Say I pull it down to like 30%. So then around the edges, if I paint, it's going to paint, but it's painting with just a little bit of opacity. So it's just going to really feather off any of the fur or this. If this was skin, I would probably do that in that. So the zebra, I need to make some zebra up over here. So I need to make sure that I click on the zebra, hold Alt down, click, come over here, and I can actually, look, I've made animal. Oh, pull your opacity back up. That's why it's not working. So we learned to start problem solving. When things don't work, make sure you're on the right layer, check your opacity, make sure there's no selection there. And then there's a little kind of triangle right there. I'm just going to go to my eraser real quick. And then I can erase anything that I don't want there. That's on my zebra layer. Just get rid of that. Oh, look, my eraser was down at 50%. So make sure your opacity's back up. We keep changing those things. So I'll keep working on my hair. Here's another thing that you need to be aware of. If I go to my tail, so I'm going to go back to the clone stamp tool. I'm going to click on my tail, say I want the vacuum to go there. And then if I start painting, oh no, it's not painting. Well, it's because you're painting underneath the zebra. So you either need to, this is kind of destructive. You could click on the zebra. So click on the layer above it. I'm actually painting on top of the zebra, destroying the zebra. I could add tail layer here. Oh, stop. Tail layer. And I could add its own layer. So suck up from the tail. This is where you have to be aware of what layer you are on. Oh, I flipped the eraser. Clone stamp tool. Click on the layer that's above it. And then now I can go and I can paint over that little tail. And I can kind of blend in. I'm going to have to change my source. You're going to have to zoom in to do this. Oh, see? Tail, click, suck up the tail, and then I can paint again. All right. This might be a part where I want to use that opacity trick. So I've painted with 100%. I might go back to 50% and give it a little line of 50%. See how that's kind of blending a little bit softer out. And then I might even go down to 12% and do like a really faint kind of line coming down this way. Okay. And so that's going to blend those pieces together with a little bit of overlap so that you can see one through the other. So, the other part about blending or clone stamp tool, if you happen to get any little watermark pieces on here, like this was a photo that a photographer put a watermark on and said, hey, I don't want you to use this, but we're using it for educational learning purposes. So we're fine. Okay. We're just not going to sell these. So I can go in here, and I'm playing the keyboard as well as playing the mouse, and I am changing my source point, and you can still see this one needs to be a little bit darker. Missed a little bit here. Okay. Get rid of any of these little lines. If you happen to get a watermark on there, this is how you take watermarks out. This is also how you remove ex-girlfriends or ex-boyfriends from pictures. Well, you should never fade memories. Anyway, so that is blending, that is warping, and that is resizing using shift. Make sure you have a habitat in the background, and then you will be using the text tool to come down here in the bottom right corner. Explore the text tool, and the text, you're going to add the pet name. So this is Stanley. And then you're going to add the species name. So when you add a species name, it does need to go into italics. So you need to figure out, how do I find a font that has a italics and a regular so that you can make the species name in italics. So you're going to do some font work, looking for a font that has italics as well as regular. And then you're going to sign your name in the bottom right-hand corner. So I'll show you the final product at the end to show you what it should look like once I finish mine. All right. Happy blending.